and welcome to this week's Natural Gardening Live with me, Josie Rainbow, your natural gardening coach. This week's Natural Gardening Live, we are talking about, what are we talking about? We're talking about weeds. That's what we're talking about this week. How weeds can support your garden and which weeds are worth not pulling up. So this is what we're talking about this week. And hopefully I can change the way that you look, the light in which you look at weeds. Are we ready? Weeds can be a chore. We know this. They're like a must-do job in the garden. You need to keep on top of them or they go rife. It can be quite pleasant to do if it's a nice, normal summer and the weather isn't blisteringly hot. You can sit out there and just do a bit of weeding every now and then, just a bit of mindful activity. It's nice. That can be pleasant. That can be. But when they pressurize you and take over your garden, that's not so pleasant. So that's when they can become a chore. So, to say, they can be quite pleasant, but most gardeners, including myself sometimes, do think of them as a never-ending task. It is what it is. Weeds can grow like crazy. We know this. No matter the state of your soil, you can have the naffest soil in the world and you still get weeds. No matter the state of your soil, the quality of your manicured lawns or state of your flower bed maintenance, however good your garden looks, you'll always get weeds. Certain plants, usually the ones that you haven't planted there deliberately, they tend to thrive over other plants. You need to clear your garden of weeds. Now, this has come from me, I think, more than anything, but I do see this reflected in other gardeners as well. The need to clear your garden of weeds is totally justified, and there's actually some benefits weeds can actually offer your garden. So there's quite a lot of benefits actually weeds can offer your garden, but I couldn't go into them all today, so I've only got a couple on here for you, but they're good. They're good, I promise. So there's some benefits weeds can actually offer your garden. They might actually be worth leaving them in for, but I'll leave that up to you at the end. I've got a question for you before I start. Do you know what weeds actually thrive in your garden? If you can't identify them, it's fine. So yeah, comment them below. It'd be interesting to see the different weeds that people have got in their garden in different areas. So that's me just being curious, I think, more than anything else. It's always worth keeping in mind that weeds are, as much as we call them weeds, are just plants growing in the wrong place. You haven't deliberately sown them there or planted them there. That makes them weed in our eyes. It's a really naff definition, I think, of plants, but it's what we're working with. So yeah, weeds are just plants growing in the wrong place. Weeds can offer as many benefits to your garden's ecosystem as plants you sow and grow deliberately. They can, and sometimes more as well. Many weeds are natives. So if you understand what I mean by the term native, they're a native species to the area that you're living in. So many weeds are natives and they've grown and changed over time to thrive in your localized environment. So your garden, the countryside around you, the soil type that you've got. So they've changed, developed and grown. It's they call it survival of the fittest. What's the word? I've forgotten the word. Oh, my brain. You know what I mean. You know what I mean. I know you do. Yeah, they've changed over time. They've grown. It'll come to me in a minute, I promise. I'll shout it out and it'll make no sense to anyone. So yes, so they've grown and changed over time to actually thrive in your garden, in the environment your garden is providing for them. Now, one of the massive benefits of growing native plants in your garden, get them around the wrong way, is the insect life that it attracts in. I always like to promote, especially when you're doing a wild area for your garden, try and plant natives as much as you can, because they are the insects in your garden and in our area, county, countryside, whatever you want to say, the insects thriving in this area will go to the plants that grow natively to the area. They just will. There are a lot of plants that you can cultivate and deliberately sow and grow to support insects and things in your garden. Absolutely perfect. But nothing does a better job than a native. Promise you that. So that's one of the benefits that weeds can actually provide for your garden. Being a native plant, they can attract in some amazing different insects that will actually work to support the ecosystem in your garden, which, as we know, promotes pollination, leading to more fruit and veg in your veg patch, or flowers and seeds, pest control, nutrients. I'm trying to list them all now. Releasing nutrients in the soil, supporting the ecosystem, as I say, in the plant ecosystem and the soil ecosystem. So it all goes hand in hand. It's like a link in the chain. So weeds can provide an awful lot of benefits to your garden, just looking at that side of it. So it's good. So basically the overall picture that just from this little snippet, the weeds provide for your garden, it does support the overall health of your garden. If you really want to umbrella it, supporting that. So just that alone, this is why I put this one in there, because it's such a broad benefit that it can offer your garden. But yeah, they're natives at the end of the day. I will put one caveat to that. Not all weeds are natives. I will accept that. Some of them have been imported, shall we say, brought over from wherever, whichever weed you're thinking of that might be not native. But there are an awful lot. Most weeds that will grow in your garden will be native of some kind to your area. As much as they need managing and can grow out of control, a lot of cultivated species of plant outgrow a lot of cultivated species of plant. Natives are vital to the link in the natural ecosystem growing in your garden and can provide a lot of food and nutrients for the insects and your plants, which I'll get into in a second, insects in your garden. Sometimes it's important to go with the flow and just let nature, I love this bit, just let nature show you how to do it. And sometimes you do need to step in and you do need to take control of the situation and put a few up, but we'll go into that in a minute. Not all weeds are bad, I promise you. Some weeds can help your garden, help feed your garden, help to provide nutrients to your plants. So these types of weeds accumulate the nutrients from deep down in the soil. They are stored in their roots and their leaves. There's a lot of benefits to this type of weed, which I'll go into in a second. Nearly there, I promise. But they do store an awful lot. They've got a really good technique at finding the nutrients in the soil, storing it in their roots and their leaves, and then so as they die back, they release the nutrients for the plants. So I'll talk you through that in a moment, but there are an awful lot of weeds that do this. People don't realise it. And they're busy pulling these weeds up and get rid of them, either in green bags or compost. Compost not so bad, but green bags. And they get rid of all those nutrients from the soil. It's scary. These types of weeds are called dynamic accumulators and can, if you know what to look for, can be a massive benefit to your garden. As I say, a lot of people don't know this and don't know these weeds can actually benefit your garden, and then just rip them up and they're taking the nutrients with them. So it's not so good. Wasted resource. These weeds can be used as a green mulch, which is really good, releasing the nutrients from the leaves and the roots as they break down into the soil, like I just said a moment ago. They can be made into a liquid feed via like a weed soak, like we do with nettles or the comfrey, anything like that. Making a liquid feed. So as the material, the leaf material, if you like, dies back in the, or rots away in the water, all the nutrients that it's stored in the leaves will then be leached out into this water, making the water a liquid feed. So it's genius. But if you use them as a green mulch, you can also chop the roots up as well. So, and this will then act the same. As it all rots back, it will die back into the soil, compost into the soil, and then release the nutrients that are stored in the roots and the leaves into the top layer of soil. So the whole process is it's taking it from the subsoil, the roots, the tap roots of, say, which I'll talk about in a minute, dandelions, for instance. I'll skip a bit here. Dandelions, so the tap root will go right down into the subsoil. So you know how long a dandelion root can get. They can really dive down. Go down into the subsoil and put up any nutrients that they need. So any of the potassium, nitrogen, calcium, anything like that, they'll draw that up through the taproot, store it in the taproot. That becomes the food source. Comes like a parsnip or a carrot is like the food source of the plant. So it will store it in the root, grow it up, and then it will go out into the leaves as well. And then as the plant dies, it will die back into the soil. But if you pull the dandelion up, it will rot down on top and leave it on top of the soil. Chop it up, leave it on top of the soil. It'll rot down into the soil then. But generally speaking, as the leaves die back, they will naturally die into the compost anyway, into the soil anyway. So they do that. But it's most of the goodness in a dandelion is stored in the root. So this can be a real revelation for gardeners. It can. It was a revelation to work out that how these weeds actually work and how they store the nutrients, and how you can then access the nutrients. So not just how the plant uses them and how they store it and everything, but actually how we can then turn the tables and use it for our own gain. So it is a revelation for a lot of gardeners. And having the ability to use weeds, things that we pull up and get rid of in the garden as feed for the plants in our garden, can save an awful lot of money. A lot of time as well. We don't have to then be bagging up and getting rid of weeds hand over fist. So it's a lot of time, a lot of money, and can also improve the nutrients of the soil, which is also amazing. So that has a knock-on effect, helping to support the health of the garden, the ecosystem in the soil, releasing more nutrients, keeping everything happy, controlling pests. To see how it all links. We'll get there. I do hope this has helped you to like reframe how you see weeds and actually maybe identify the benefits they can offer, and not be so hell-bent on like ripping them out of your garden, getting rid of them, because they are actually quite beneficial. And you don't need to spend so much time and effort trying to rip them up out of your garden. It's fine. Leave them there. So if you've got any comments, please feel free to comment below, and I will answer any comments I see as they pop up. That's fine. See you later and have a lovely day.